This is episode 61 of the Gauntlet podcast. My name is Jason.
My name is Steve.
And I'm Rich.
Awesome. Rich, I gather you got a chance to play Uncharted Worlds recently. Tell us about it.
Listeners, you may remember the holiday time episode that we recorded with the Tabletop Superhighway. Larry, one of the hosts from Tabletop Superhighway, reached out to me because he was interested in starting up a new game group. And I'm always up for a game, it turns out. He suggested Uncharted Worlds. Now, my previous experience with Uncharted Worlds was actually Dan's lukewarm review of Uncharted Worlds.
It was very lukewarm too. Yeah.
If I remember correctly, the character creation, which is all that we've done at this point. Character creation, you choose an origin, and then you choose career number 1 and career number 2. It's a little bit of a life path system, and he chose Grizzled as his look for 2 different life paths, so he was double Grizzled, if I remember correctly. I thought that was pretty funny.
Are there mechanical effects for having it twice? Does it do something more or something harder?
No, it's just... I think he just wanted to be funny.
You're just...
Because you choose different looks.
Is it possible mechanically to get 2, or was that a mistake on Dan's part?
Well, I don't think it was a mistake on Dan's part at all. If you choose 2 different... There's a little bit of overlap. Like, you choose this one career, and you choose this other career, and it's got suggestions of looks. It's not just one look. There's like 3 or 4 you can choose some. So I think Dan purposely chose Grizzled twice because it really appealed to him. I'm not
okay.
I'm not here to talk about Dan.
Here, he's not here to defend his position, so we don't know.
He is not. I enjoyed a little bit of a life path system in the Apocalypse world, because this is an Apocalypse Engine game that is created to emulate a variety of different sci-fi games. Because once you have your characters, you then talk about the possible story mode that you want. You can do a small starship like Firefly. You can do a grand starship like Star Trek Enterprise. You can do a colony, and there are a few suggestions there. So you choose the setting or kind of the mode of play, which is pretty interesting. It's pretty far-reaching. Like with Uncharted Worlds, a lot of Apocalypse Engine games are pretty dialed into a specific story style, and with Uncharted Worlds, it's pretty. I would say there are some wide aims here, and I'm curious to see how it plays. I do like that aspect of, well, I want a sci-fi game, but this is the kind of sci-fi game that most interests me. That conversation was really helpful for our group to get all on one page. But there is one aspect of Uncharted Worlds I absolutely wanted to highlight. It's my favorite so far of just looking through the game and creating a character and talking about our setting, and that is the advancement system.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you remember this, Jason? Do you know?
I have not played it. No, I haven't played it.
Okay. The advancement system reminds me of flags, actually.
Oh, okay, cool.
All right.
What you do is you choose from part of your character creation, you have an advancement, and if that thing happens, for example, Vasily, that's my character. My advancement, because one of his careers was as an industrial, he was a worker, so his advancement is a breakage occurs. So if at any point during the game session a breakage occurs, not only does Vasily get an XP, so do the other characters within the party.
Okay, so there's a really, really high incentivization for everyone to try to make that happen, basically.
Exactly.
Right? That's interesting.
And so our little group of 3, we have a breakage occurs, a forgotten place is excavated, and a celebration is held. So I like it because we are indicating these are the things we want to happen. It makes it easier for the GM or MC to build some stories to have that happen. And I'm curious to see how it works in play, because I'm pretty excited about it. I like flags, and this feels flag-like.
I'm digging that. This is a thing that a lot of the newer games are doing, right? Going away from like the old highlight way of doing things, which I personally have always felt like the highlights were a little vague. I want you to be sexy. Okay. Like what does that... There's a wide range of things there, right? Like the flags and some of these games like the Sprawl, which I'm going to talk about, has a similar thing where it's more about, I want you to do this specific thing, or I personally want to do this specific thing. Help me do this specific thing, right?
Yeah, it's really cool to encourage further interaction in those games. I love the way this sort of thing goes.
Yeah. I like this trend of like drilling it down into like more specific fictional outcomes as opposed to the highlight way. The highlight way, I'm actually coming around on a little bit. I think it works particularly well in Monster Hearts because the characters are already they purposely don't have like really grand aims or designs usually, right? They're kind
that's true.
They're kind of like pulled along by the tide of their emotion or whatever. But the highlight method works, in that game pretty well. But there are other games that do the highlight, like Monster of the Week. I don't like it in Monster of the Week. I just don't think it. I don't think it really works there.
I think that was first edition. I'm pretty sure second edition went to XP on a
Oh, that's
fail.
right. That's right. It's XP on
because
a fail.
that was definitely
right.
a thing that I hated too. I really did not like that.
Yeah.
Early versions of Dungeon World in playtest was highlight a stat as well, and that was terrible.
Yeah. I mean, I think when it's a more action-oriented, like a more procedural game or an action-oriented game, I think the highlights doesn't make as much sense.
Yeah.
Right.
You've got a very specific thing to do. It's time to kick monster butt. Oh, you want me to talk to people? Okay.
Right. Great. Yeah. You want me to go have sex with this person right now? In between killing monsters? All right, awesome. It's just weird, right?
Yeah.
I agree.
Well, so I'll be curious to see how it goes. I've always thought, Rich, that one of the great advantages of the Apocalypse World engine games is they are usually designed to tell one type of story really well, right?
Right.
Now, there's some games that kind of expand that out a little bit to great effect, but, you think about games like Urban Shadows, you think about games like Worldwide Wrestling, right? Like they're really tightly designed to do a real specific thing. I haven't played many of these bigger, more sandboxy type PBTA games, really. Spirit of 77 has a similar character creation process, and I wasn't in love with it, frankly, in that game, because I like just grabbing a playbook and looking at the moves and be like, all right, I get this, I'm ready to go.
Right.
So I'll be curious to see how you like it after you get some more like playtime with it.
I'll definitely update you.
Awesome, cool. Steve, you played a very old game, Khet. That's been around forever.
Not only a very old game,
I played that like 30 years ago or something. not that long ago. It was a long time ago, though, when I played it.
I played the older version of it, even called Deflexion.
That's what I played.
Spelled with an X. Yeah. Khet, by the way, is Khet. That's the version you can still find on shelves. The simple explanation for this is it is laser chess.
Yep.
Deflection / Khet. Basically, on your turn, you can move a piece into any adjacent spot, and the board has slots into which each piece fits, so it'll always be in a fairly uniform place. And that's important because after you move a piece, what you do is you fire off the laser on your side of the board. Most of the pieces have reflective surfaces at an angle, so that if the laser hits one, it will deflect off at a 90-degree angle and probably hit others. If it, however, hits either a non-mirrored side of a piece or one of the pieces that has no mirrored sides, that piece gets taken out. And what you're trying to do is eventually hit the other player's, what do they call it, pharaoh. I think there's an Egyptian theme to it, but whatever. There's also one piece that is nothing but mirrors and has two mirrored sides, so you can't actually take it out. What you can do with that, the only slightly weird thing in the game, aside from what I've explained, is you can use that piece to switch with any other. Oh, on your turn, you could either, I should say, move your piece one space or turn it 90 degrees. And then with these pieces, you can switch places with another piece. It is a lot of fun. I haven't played in a few years. I've had it for a while. Like chess, your turns can take a while somebody's thinking, of the implications of their moves.
Right.
But it's fun to sort of create this mass of mirrors at the, center of the board, where if you just switch one thing around, suddenly you're attacking them instead of just resulting in a laser that hits the side of the board or something. It sounds like such a gimmicky, ridiculous game, but I found there's a very satisfying level of strategy. Like, it ends up being a really fun game, and it's worth the buy-in, I think.
I don't think we put a real clear bright line point on this in your description. It's legit laser, right? It's an actual laser you fire.
What?
There are literal lasers.
Oh man!
Yeah, it's not like
I'm sorry.
A cardboard representation of a laser. It's like a legit laser. You press a button and a laser.
There are actual mirrors.
These pieces, right? Yeah,
actual mirrors reflecting literal lasers.
Right, yeah. I was thinking about it. I was like, will people realize what you're talking about right now? Yeah, it's super compelling in that way that. There's some games that just by dint of their physical pieces, you are compelled, right? Like, you must do, you must play, and Khet's definitely one of those for sure. It looks neat. It's a neat experience.
I'd heard of it. I'd heard it described. I was of the mindset that, oh, that's going to be a stupid, silly thing. And just, I think probably like Dread. That sounds like a dumb gimmick. And then in play, oh no, that works great.
Yeah, it works great.
Yeah, it is a dumb gimmick. And I'm a sucker for dumb gimmicks, I guess, because it's a lot of fun.
I think when a gimmick can help tie into the theme of the game, I appreciate a gimmick a lot more. I think Dreads is really good for that, right?
Yeah.
I'm not sure what lasers
and in
have
this
to do
case,
with Egyptian pharaohs, but
yeah, we were talking last night about like we need to have some sort of a special night. Can we get an excuse to buy some dry ice and filter it down across the board so we can see our lasers at all points instead of just where they end up? The best we could do is like the first 5 minutes of what's it called? We can make a movie night, and the Fifth Element, the first 5 minutes involves Egypt and mirrors because they're trying to light an inner chamber with reflecting sunlight or something. That's the best I could do.
Nice. Is there anything else you want to say about it?
No.
All right, cool. Well, you and I both got a chance to play The Woodlands yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
It was pretty good. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah.
So The Woodlands is by Andrew Medeiros. It is basically Mouse Guard powered by the apocalypse, but with the ability to play other animals. So our patrol of animals was actually 2 beavers, 2 mice, and a squirrel, and they were going out to... Listeners, I wish you could see the look on Rich's face right now.
It sounds like the beginning of like a tavern joke.
It does. 2 beavers, 2 mice, and a squirrel walk into a bar. A tavern joke. God, you're such an RPG nerd. Powered by the Apocalypse Mouse Guard is the easiest way of describing what it is. It presently exists just as a set of playbooks and move sheets, but I don't know if he has any intention of writing any text for it or not. He makes a lot of assumptions that you kind of know the basic, ebb and flow of a Powered by the Apocalypse game. I do, so and all the players did, so running it was not a problem at all. Steve, what did you think about it?
I enjoyed it a lot. I think you mentioned some assumed Powered by the Apocalypse knowledge. I think there's also some assumed Mouse Guard knowledge because the setting,
right? Yeah,
you sort of, you sort of create the setting together as well. Aside from the basic, you are tiny animals on patrol assumptions. In fairness, okay, there's not a ton to Mouse Guard besides that, I guess.
Yeah, they're mice with swords that are ranger mice with swords, right? I mean,
right.
It.
I'm a big fan of the Mouse Guard comics. They take tiny furry animals and they put them through horrible trials. And I've played
real high drama.
Yeah. They managed to David Peterson, is that the author, the artist?
Yes,
I can't remember.
That's right.
Yeah. Peterson manages to eke out a lot of drama from that basic premise, and but by putting you the role playing game should theoretically put you in the shoes at least of the protagonist, of tiny creatures trying to deal with what we as people would probably see as tiny problems, but that suddenly become much realer. Suddenly a crab is a huge threat, a snapping turtle is a huge threat, your enemy weasels or whatever are huge threats, and this game does a really good job of bringing that out as well.
Yeah. I thought that was its strength. Drew has really nailed the feel of Mouse Guard. The selection of moves, the different playbooks, and the different things that the playbooks can do, like the different sort of like functions of each playbook, like really, really emulates the Mouse Guard story quite well.
Yeah.
One of the things that it does that I thought was interesting is he imports over the conditions mechanic from the Burning Wheel based Mouse Guard.
Oh.
So hungry, tired, injured, and so forth.
Yeah.
And I was a little hesitant about how that would work, because that is that mechanic in Mouse Guard is tailored in a very, very Burning Wheel way, right? It's hard for me to even imagine how that mechanic would work in a Powered by the Apocalypse context. I thought it worked great, though. I thought it was really good. When you take one of the conditions, you get a -2, not to a stat, but you get a -2 to certain basic moves. And so, and he's got it laid out so it's really easy to tell, like, at any given time, like what you should be rolling on a basic move. So that was interesting. It worked mechanically. It worked. I don't ever remember thinking this is unbalanced or it's off kilter. Like, I never felt that way. But it works better, even in my opinion. I'd be curious to hear what you have to say about it, Steve. I like that a big part of this game is acquiring the conditions and then doing the things necessary to get rid of the conditions. That push and pull between the GM and the players of like, okay, well, now you have this condition. What's that like? Okay, now you're going to go take care of that condition. How are you going to do it? That's a theme in not all of, but a lot of Drew's Apocalypse World-based games, is this idea of I'm in this like really, really high stress, high drama situation, and my character is having emotional and or physical toll upon their body and their mind, and I have to go do things in my downtime or off to the side to like take care of it. Like that comes out in a lot of his PBTA games a lot, and this one it really came out well. It led to some really good scenes, I thought.
I don't think I saw as much of that as some of the other players. I think I only accumulated 2 conditions as the game went on. And one of them I didn't want to get rid of because if I bitched about it, I would advance.
Right, yeah. It was one of your directives, right?
Right. And the other one happened fairly late game, and I thought it was fun to play out its severity, and so didn't pursue removing it again. And it was the end of the game, so I thought it felt appropriate to go with it. But I thought the conditions worked really well, and that -2 penalty, since you're rolling 2d6, it's not just the probability is not static, so that's pretty hefty.
Yeah, I just want to say, I'm not usually a big, like, let me share this story of, about my game. Let me tell you about this thing that happened in my game. I'm not usually into that so much. But we had a thing that happened in this game that I thought was not only made for a good story, but was actually like, it did a really good job of highlighting the mechanics and how the moves were kind of moving the fiction along. A major theme of the story, or a major sort of like arc in our story, was this young mouse recruit who had not yet earned her cloak, which was how she got to be a part of the Wardens, right? Like, until she got her cloak, she wasn't an official Warden. And the other characters, the more senior characters in her life, like the way they kind of bickered over her about the best way to teach her how to do things and all that sort of stuff, that was a big part of our story. This character, this mouse recruit, her father had been part of that same patrol. So there was that backstory too. Like, the other characters had a history with her father, who was killed when he got washed away in a flood while trying to save some civilians. Throughout the story, there was a lot of scenes involving like memories of her father and how the patrol honored him when he died and just stuff like that, right? And how she, needed to live up to the example of her father and all that kind of stuff. It was a really tremendous little kind of character arc that she got. And near the end of the session, the characters had to do a move called Brave the Elements. They were in a beaver dam, and they were braving the elements in a beaver dam. It's a big, nasty, torrential rainstorm. And one of the move results was make an unexpected discovery. And we decided that the thing they discovered was the remains and tattered cloak of her father that had got caught in the beaver dam when it got washed up into it. Okay. And so that was near the end of the game. And the final scene, her having proven her courageousness and heroism, her mentor placed the tattered cloak on her shoulders to make her a warden. Ooh. It was really good.
Yeah.
It was all the feels. It was a really, really great moment. And the moves pushed it that way, which I thought was really great.
These conditions remind me of masks, actually. That was the first place where I saw conditions as kind of wound ranks, as it were, with fictional ways to get rid of that condition. So
cool.
It's pretty interesting. I really like that.
Are there hefty penalties, or are there penalties to various moves or whatever in masks?
-2s to several basic, one or more basic moves for each condition. It sucks.
Awesome. I don't have anything else to say about it. Do you, Steve?
No. Just a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was great fun. Drew did a great job with it. And listeners, if you want to get a hold of that, I think he has a website now. Previously, you could only get it through his Patreon, but I think he actually has a website now where he sells it. I think it's a couple bucks. So go look out for that if that sounds interesting to you. Rich, how did Legend of the Elements go?
Legend of the Elements is going really well. We're almost done with the Paramount group, which I play on Saturdays. It was an open-ended game. Like, we had not said it's going to be X number of sessions, but after running Legend of the Elements a couple times at Origins, I realized I've gotten what I wanted out of this game. I really want to play some other games too, So I want to bring this to a head. So I started reincorporating a lot of the previous characters and kind of, no, it was this person that is your conflict. Okay, here's the other person that you didn't like. It turns out they're at the head of this conflict. And that's working pretty well because they're excited, right? These are characters that we've created. I'm reincorporating them, bringing things to a head. And one of the things that really, Jason, I've picked up from playing with you and other people is the idea of smash cutting. So we end up in this penultimate episode. There's a lot of action here. They found out that in the Festival of the Four, which is this big celebration, that there's a small army that's coming to try to take these people unaware. At the same time, the son of one of the other leaders is trying to basically steal the throne at the same time. And that led to splitting the party, which your traditional, conventional wisdom is don't split the party, right?
Yeah.
Right.
In Hangouts, I've found that's kind of a good thing, right? When you have 4 or 5 players and they're all doing that, okay, I talk, wait, no, you talk, wait, no, you go,
Right,
you
yeah.
go. Get really uncomfortable, right? And get to the point where you're like me as a player, I'll just sublimate. I'm just like, I'll get quiet.
Right.
Yeah. That's no good.
So we split them up, and the player who was most excited about the guy who was trying to steal the throne went with another character, and then the other 2 were like, we're going to report on this thing and make sure that the leader of this festival knows that these guys are going to do their little traitorous thing, right? So they split up, and I did smash cutting back and forth. So rather than just pursuing one line through and then coming back and having a long amount of time, I tried to just keep amping up the tension.
Good, yeah.
For each of them. And I've just found that's a really, really fun way to progress the timeline, to keep people on the same, because sometimes someone might do something in another area that should have echoes in the second place, right?
Right.
So to keep them in the same timeline is great. So just nudge a little forward, come to a point where people really care about the outcome. Snatch it away.
Yes.
Don't tell them. Jump, smash cut right over to the next one. Restate what just happened in their area to remind them, okay, this is the thing that just happened. All right, here's where you're headed. Get a couple moves, come up to a die roll. Don't answer it. Jump over to the other one and just rope-a-dope back and forth. You're juggling 2 balls, but you're not actually juggling them together per se. You're like juggling 2 balls, one with each hand. And they get to look back and forth between the 2. And it was funny because we do the roses and thorns after the game, and 2 of the guys there like, that was my favorite part. Like, I got worried when you said we're going to split up, but man, that was the best.
Good.
Like, the smash
That's
cutting
awesome.
back and forth.
Yeah.
That's great. I love a smash cut. Yeah, I feel you on that. I like to smash cut even when the stakes aren't super high, honestly, because so like whenever, like in Dungeon World lately, or in games like that where they have a discern realities type move and you get like 3 questions, or 3 hold to spend. Lately, I've been just having them like fire the move off and then maybe do 1 question, but otherwise I just have them hold it for a minute and I go to the next person. It's kind of a nice way of dispersing the spotlight a little bit, and
it's also helpful that if they
cool.
don't have those 3 questions like right at the top of mind,
they can think about it. Yeah. Cool. Is there anything else you want to say about Legend of the Elements? We should mention that it's just for anybody who doesn't know what it is Avatar, is that right? Avatar,
yeah.
The Last Airbender, the RPG. Okay, great.
It is, and it has been, the full PDF has been sent to backers, and also the books have gone out. In fact, I was playing a game with my buddy Scott Saturday night, and he showed me his copy, which I haven't got my copy yet. I'm very anxiously awaiting it. Should come to drive-through very soon. That's like the next order of business for Max, so out there soon.
Okay,
Awesome.
cool.
Steve, you played a game called Fuse. What's that about?
Fuse is a game my roommates introduced me to, and it's a really fun bomb defusing card game on a timer. And by timer, I mean there's an app that goes along with it.
Okay.
Everyone has a couple of bomb cards in front of them, and each bomb card has symbols on them telling everybody what sorts of dice go on them and where. Sometimes this is like you need any green die here, or you need any 6 here, or you need a green die here and then any 6 here, and then on top of that you stack a yellow die, that sort of thing. There's all sorts of combinations, and some of them are much easier to get than others. you'll hit go on the timer. I think the game runs, I think the timer that we've played with is 9 minutes. And then one player is the designated dice puller, I guess. They pull as many dice out of a bag as there are players. If they pull too many, they have to put it all back. Roll those dice, and then players scramble to find one die to put on one of their 2 cards. If one or multiple players can't find something, then there's a very good chance that one or several players will end up putting dice back in the bag, taking dice off of the cards where they're already placed. Sometimes after great labor and stress, like I've been looking for a green 6 for 3 minutes, you jerks, and now I have to get rid of it. Anyway, there are consequences if you can't work together and figure out where to put your dice. It's a game that, because it runs on a timer, it has a very set time limit. It's extremely stressful in a way that at least I find very fun. It's a game where you'll be like yelling and laughing at the same time at your fellow players. Once you've finished a card, you grab a new one, and you're trying to go through 20, give or take, I think, in order to win. And I think we are just very bad at this game. We've won like 2 out of, I don't know, 7 games or something. Every once in a while, a card will pop up when you're turning over a new bomb card to replace. There's like 5 in the center of the table from which you can pick to replace ones you finished. And some of the ones you'll flip over are screw you cards, like get rid of a blue card, a blue die, get rid of a die with a number 5 on it, that sort of thing. And so you have to deal with that, and you're constantly taking 2 steps forward and then 1 step back, and again yelling at your fellow players. But it's cooperative, and you're all going for the same goal. It's a small box game. It's relatively cheap, and I'm talking about it. I just want to play it again right now. It's really tense. I love it.
Oh, that sounds cool.
So you don't want to be here recording the podcast with us? You'd rather be playing Fuse?
Let me mention another part that really amps up the tension. It's not just a timer on the app. There's also a voice, and that voice is mostly criticizing. Like the app doesn't actually know how well you're doing, but inevitably you're having a stressful time of it, and the voice is just like, I can't believe this is as far as you've gotten.
Awful.
Are you?
Ouch.
You know how much time is left, right? You should really be going faster. So just shut up, lady. Don't do it.
I love those board game app voices. My favorite still is the one from One Night Ultimate Werewolf. See ya, turn over one other card.
So overdramatic. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Is there anything else you want to say about it? Sounds fun.
No, that's good.
It does sound fun.
Hey, real quick, Rich, what's this weird thing you're doing with 5e right now?
No, it's not so weird. It's so there for listeners. Dungeons and Dragons has a 5th edition out right now.
What?
Yeah, there's like 5 editions.
The hell
I
you
saw
say?
5e on the notes. I didn't know what the hell you were talking about. And now my mind is blown, Rich. Jesus Christ. Why am I playing Dungeon World? What the fuck?
Holy crap, D&D is complex.
And isn't 5th ed supposed to be at least the easiest since 3rd ed? Or since 3rd ed came out, I mean, it was 3rd and 4th are complicated.
I'm sure it's easy. I'll get it. I'm just kind of dumb.
Can I just say real quick, Rich, since we're talking about complicated trad games, Ray Otis is playing Pathfinder right now. I'm not sure what. I don't know the backstory behind that. I don't know why he's doing it. But,
I think his teenage sons chose it.
Okay, he's you could on his G Plus. He's been just like posting like pictures of blocks of text explaining different things in the game. It's kind of a riot. I'm into it. Like the other day he posted one of like, it was like this gigantic paragraph about like how to open a door.
What I love about it is that it spends the first 2/3 of the paragraph describing all of the, like how you can roll on a table to determine what kind of door it is, and then there's like one sentence that completely obviates any preceding text of, or you can just make it up.
Exactly. It's so good.
Because we need to say that thing.
Awesome. All right, well, so what are you doing in 5e right now?
My buddy Paul and I, this is really just selfishly Rich begging for someone to help him get to the 10th rung of Ladder of Insanity.
It's all about Ladder of Insanity for you, isn't it?
It's driven me insane. And I said, Paul, what's a game that we could run 10 sessions of that isn't PBTA? Because seriously, like, I've tapped that vein, it's collapsed, I've gone to a second vein. And he said, well, I'm pretty good at D&D. I'm like, all right, let's do this thing. So we're doing over Hangouts, a solo game, a 1v1, inspired by the Vlad Taltosh series of books by Stephen Brust.
Okay.
Except we're running in the setting of Freeport, which is really cool. I'm not sure if you guys have ever read that thing.
No.
There are a bunch of books.
No.
Green Ronin released it. They've done a Fate version. They've done a couple iterations of D&D versions of Freeport. It's a pirate setting, but it's got a killer map.
Okay.
Awesome.
It's nice. It's one of those settings where there's a lot of canon, and if you want to lean into the canon, it can be really fun. And we are doing that. There's a guy named Finn who is the capo that my character works for, who is like a little Irish halfling guy who runs the Halfling Beneficiary Society, and that's his little mob.
They call those leprechauns normally, right? Sorry.
You say it's like a piratey thing. Is it swashbuckly?
There is some buckling of swashes that can happen. My character is a warlock, so he does not buckle many swashes.
Okay.
It's a pretty neat game. We had a 5-minute divergence of trying to figure out how spell slots work for warlocks, because it's special, because everything that I choose turned out to have special rules. But we figured it out.
Have fun with your... how long's this gonna go on, your D&D
10 sessions, because there's only 10 rungs on the Ladder of Insanity.
This is madness. It's insanity.
How high up? How many rungs
By
you on?
rung 10, I will have played 10 different RPGs that are listed in the RPG database, 10 different sessions.
Wow, that's crazy.
I'm on the doorstep of rung 7. Ghost Lines is holding me back, but once I get Ghost Lines in, I'll jump to rung 8 soon. But I have to bring up like 2 more games. So Lady Blackbird is like rising fast, and then Monster of the Week is next, and then D&D 5e.
All right. Well,
I got a plan.
Fair winds and following seas on the Ladder of Insanity. I hope it goes well for you with 5e. I got a chance to play the Sprawl. Actually, I've had 4 chances to play the Sprawl. We're running a little campaign of it right now. We have 1 more to go. The Sprawl is by Hamish Cameron. It is mission-based cyberpunk. The basic setup is your crew gets a job. You do some legwork to learn the details of the job, the things you need to know to actually perform the action needed to complete the job. You then do the action. Once the job is over, whether successful or not, you go get paid, and that's a role that gets engaged. The getting paid can lead to backstabbing and other plot twists, and then you have some downtime, and you go and do it again. It's pretty fun. I really, really like it a lot. I am not actually normally a big cyberpunk guy. I don't know the tropes of cyberpunk very well, but I did do a little bit of research beforehand, before running this game.
I got to know, what research did you do?
I watched I watched a very, very highly curated list of YouTube clips, Rich. I did not read a fucking book, if that's what you're asking. I did not read some goddamn cyberpunk book. I was not doing that. I did watch some really fine YouTube clips. There's my favorite one by far. My favorite bit of research by far, which I didn't do for this game, as my favorite cyberpunk related thing in the world, is this promotional video from like 1989 for Shadowrun. It's a live action promotional video. It's a wash in like fuchsia light, and it's so amazing. Anyway, we'll include a link to that in the show notes. People should watch that.
It's really good.
It is really good. The Sprawl is great. It does a few things that I'm really liking so far. Like I said, we have 1 more session, but I think my opinions are pretty well sorted on it because I've had a chance. I played it 4 times now. It does a few things that Blades in the Dark does in terms of like mission-based play, but I like it better here because it's a more traditional Powered by the Apocalypse game. I have some issues with some of the other trappings of Blades in the Dark that kind of make that game not really my thing. But here, this game takes some of those things. I don't know if he was inspired by Blades in the Dark or not, but he has some mechanics that mirror some of the mechanics in Blades, and it works great. And it's got this system called Intel and Gear, which are like, it's an abstracted currency that reflects on Intel your crew's basic information and knowledge that they've gathered, without specifying what it is. It's abstract. And then Gear is like the stuff that they thought to bring with them, basically, on the mission, right? And you can tap those to get bonuses on rolls. You kind of basically go back and say, oh yeah, I brought this thing, right, in preparation for the mission. And so you mark off a gear and then you get your bonus. It also uses a clock system to track various types of threats in the game, which is something else Blades does. Like Blades has that really extensive campaign management system where you have just like different clocks of different factions and stuff, and as they're ticking down, the factions are getting closer to taking action against you or whatever, right?
These are the more long-term clocks as opposed to like mission clocks.
It's got different levels, right? So
yeah, okay,
you have
that's
the
cool.
legwork clock and the action clock, and those are immediate, and you want to try to complete the mission before those get filled up, because your final getting paid roll depends a lot on how that goes, how your clocks sort out at the end. And if the action clock fills up all the way, that's how you fail the mission. They are not just like a countdown, though, either. They have like fictional things tied to them as well. And as the GM, you prepare that ahead of time. So you say, okay, well, when the legwork clock gets to 1800, that means that the target has heard rumors that someone's after them, and so maybe they engage this specific type of security or whatever, right? When it gets to 2200, on the action clock, that's when the target brings in high-powered security forces, external forces, to come, take out the team, that kind of thing, right? So it's just grimportance essentially, right? And then you also have the campaign clocks, right? So you have like a clock for your corporations, and the higher those clocks are, the closer the corporations are to taking action against you, like you're more on their radar, I guess. And you can do downtime actions that reduce those. There are also just normal sorts of threat clocks to represent things that are a danger to you that aren't corporations, right? Like some of the people that I played Blades with, for example, didn't like that clock management system for the campaign. I actually really like that part of Blades. That's one of my favorite part of Blades. Mm-hmm. As a GM, I really appreciated it.
Same.
It was a really nice tool for mapping out the broader campaign, right? Like I could totally envision like how I would use that, right? And it works really well in this context too for the Sprawl. Really, really nice organizational tool.
I thought the longer term clocks in Blades, and hopefully the same is true of the Sprawl, worked really well. And so sometimes the mission clocks didn't, like there seemed to be a few too many on occasion, but the long-term stuff was really interesting.
In the Sprawl, the clocks are all like the same. They all go from 1200 to 2300, right? Whereas in Blades, there were actually different kinds of clocks with different types of segments and that functioned in a different way. So it just had a little bit more cognitive load, I think, which is what maybe some of the other players had an issue with. I like these more streamlined clocks in Sprawl. And I also, this is true of Blades and Sprawl, I like that the players are allowed to see them, right? You don't normally show those to players in PBTA games. You don't usually show your grimportance or whatever, right? You don't show your dangers. But the players are allowed to see the abstracted version of the clock that doesn't have any fictional, like just the plain numbers, so they can see how far along the clock is.
Okay.
I like that because it kind of like reinforces the pressure on the players, so they can look and they're like, oh man, such and such Zaibatsu is like going to be on our ass soon if we don't do something to like, ease, have them ease up on us, if we don't get off their radar somehow. That comes through really well in the game, like in play. Like the players are aware of how much shit they're in, right? Like they know it. And so it works pretty well. A lot of cool stuff. I also like, we kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier in the show, it has this system for getting XP, which is called directives, and it's a lot like what we discussed earlier. You basically make a statement, sort of like a belief in a way from Burning Wheel. It's very similar, and whenever you act in accordance with that statement, you get an XP. As a GM, I liked it because I could look at those things in between sessions, and I could say, oh, clearly that's what Timothy wants to do with his character. That directive really spells it out for me, so I know what kinds of things to throw in his way. So it was good goal posting for the GM. Overall, really, really good. The only thing I need to spend a little bit more time with, which we're all having kind of some issues with, is it has like this subsystem for jacking into the matrix and doing like hacking, and it's a bit, I don't think it's complicated. It's just a little counterintuitive because it's a whole like sort of separate set of moves, and unless you kind of are down with a lot of the like lingo that it's using and stuff, it's going to be a little counterintuitive. I freely admit it's probably just a mastery issue because I am not personally familiar with some of the concepts and just I don't have like a good no
YouTube videos on jacking into the Matrix that you saw.
Thank you. I think it's just going to be a mastery issue. I need to play with that system a little bit more. The last session we played, we had some pretty good luck with it. We've just had to be really deliberate about the hacking and stuff, and like which moves are firing. We've had to really just talk about it a lot, which I'm not happy with. Like I like for it to be a little bit more instinctive, but it's okay. I think it's coming along. So overall, the game is really awesome. I fucking love it. I think it's great. I've had so much fun with it. I'm kind of bummed that we're almost done.
I'm not involved in this game. It sounds really cool, actually. I've sort of been... I really want to play a cyberpunk game of some variety, because the only one I have played is a session of Shadowrun, which by that point in my gaming career, I knew I would be too complicated for me. And yes, true. So it'd be... but I like that style of fiction, so it'd be cool to find something. I might have to give this a shot.
Yeah.
How far along in the Kickstarter is this? Are they close to release?
Oh, it's done. It's like
it's out. It's a $15 PDF right now on drive-thru.
Okay,
I think
cool.
the book is just about released.
Yeah, it's been pretty hot on the small press. Hamish was at Origins and he showed me the print-on-demand draft that he had. It looks really good. Like the black on white, I don't like on a PDF, but in the actual book itself, it looked good. It was readable. It was cool looking, really cool looking. Like it's a colorful book. It's no Space Worm versus Moonicorn.
No,
but it's for
not.
color. Nothing is Space Worm versus Moonicorn in color.
True.
But it's a gorgeous little book. It's an artifact I could see at a table. I'm tempted. Like $15 is above my PDF threshold that I personally set for myself because I have gigabytes of PDFs that I'm not playing.
Wow, yeah.
But if I know I'm going to get that to the table, which I have Misha, who's all Cyberpunk all the time, who really wants to play the game. So
I have not prepared for this game, but I am prepared for this game, just sort of accidentally, in that a couple of years ago, I ran out of reading material and just sort of on a whim, I turned to a game I had bought for $1 at half-price books as a joke, namely a Shadowrun novel entitled 2XS.
Oh, Nigel Finley! I love that book!
Rich, you know
Oh my God, Rich knows what I'm talking about. Yeah, and I read it figuring I'd have a good laugh. Yeah, it was pretty sweet, actually. It was actually pretty good.
All right. Let's go to Giving Me Life. All right, it's Giving Me Life. Rich, what's giving you life?
Cast a Deadly Spell is giving me life. There is a movie. It was a made-for-HBO movie. It came out in 1991.
Oh, wow.
So it's 40 setting, except as if being able to cast magic was a relatively common thing. And the private detective, Philip Lovecraft, played by Fred Ward. That's right. H. Philip Lovecraft is investigating this mystery, right? And it is so cool because it's a really well-realized world with magic. You've got like a construction company where they have zombies that are doing the menial labor. There are some really cool, for 1991, made for HBO special effects of spells and the like. Clancy Brown is in as a heavy. It's a great, funny movie. I've loved it for so long, and you couldn't find it. VHS, it was never released to DVD, and then I actually found it on YouTube and watched it last year. I just found it's on Amazon Prime.
Cool.
And Amazon Prime Video. So if you have Amazon Prime, you can watch it, and you really should. You owe it to yourself. If you like any of the Trail of Cthulhu, anything like that, you should give this thing a shot. It's a super fun movie.
Awesome, cool. I will have to check that out.
I thought that I had only heard of it when I saw it mentioned on the outline. But no, I have actually seen this because I found it on VHS years ago.
Haha.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Steve, what's giving you life?
What's giving me life this week is, those of you who know me will be unsurprised to learn that I keep a spreadsheet detailing all the role-playing games I have played and sort of my thoughts on them.
And you keep all your character sheets too, which I think is such a weirdo thing to do.
I'm doing that less lately, but less obsessively at least. But that's how I know that the Woodlands, when I played that yesterday, that was my 100th role-playing game.
Whoa!
Yeah,
nice.
yeah. I know you guys are above and beyond that for sure, but I've been sitting at 99 for like 2.5 months or something. Not even just that, but there've been teases like, oh, almost played Lovecraft-esque. Nope. And I was signed up for ViewScream, and then the internet shat the bed, and I couldn't get on that one. So just been awaiting this moment for a while.
So this is the 100th different RPG that you've played since you started tracking? That's fantastic.
Well, not since I started tracking. I started tracking probably a couple years ago. Probably when I started playing very regularly games with the Gauntlet. And so I'm pretty sure I've remembered everything I've played, but, memory goes back a while. There's some finagling in that, like, all versions of Dungeons & Dragons are one game, but Pathfinder's a different one. That sort of thing. There's necessarily some overlap and some judgment calls. But this is my 100. And, I'm really happy about that.
Awesome.
That's cool. That's really cool.
My Giving Me Life is not so much a Giving Me Life as it's just a promo spot for other podcasts.
Are you saying that these podcasts don't give you life?
Well, they do. They take up a lot of my life, that's for sure. Not as much as you guys, though, but they take up a fair amount of my life as well. So we launched a brand new one. By the time this drops, it'll have been a week or so since the brand new one came out, and I have been taking this time to kind of promote the Gauntlet family of podcasts. I'm taking the introduction of a brand new show as an excuse to do that. I did on Discern Realities this week too. So the Gauntlet podcast is not the only podcast in our family of podcast listeners. If you haven't checked out our other ones, you should. We also have a show called Discern Realities, which is hosted by myself and David Lafreniere, who's been on the show every now and then a couple times.
Yeah.
We talk about Dungeon World in a Dragon magazine format. So we do play tips. We talk about Dungeon World based products. We do we introduce brand new material for Dungeon World, like magic items and stuff like that. And then we do our comic strip at the back of the issue, which is our little comic strip AP, right?
This is unsolicited, but I have to jump in to say I got a few episodes behind and spent this weekend listening to a couple episodes in a row, and the faces on the maggot things. Wow, man, that was next level. That blew my mind. I was listening to that because most of the time I listen to other people GM and I'm like, yeah, I can do that. I could pull that off. Yeah, I could do that. And I listen to that, I'm like, whoa, I can't. How do I can't even. That's so amazing. I could never think of that. That's so horrific.
Oh, thank you, Rich. That's very flattering. Thank you for saying that. That was fun. It was fun to do. Yeah, the APs are great. So go listen to Discern Realities. We have another show called Plus One Forward, hosted by the Gauntlet podcast's own Rich Rogers. Plus One Forward is Rich sits down with the designer of a Powered by the Apocalypse game, and they do a little bit of Apocalypse World theory, like play theory, and then they talk about that designer's specific game, some of the things that designer wants to highlight about the game and things that make that game cool. And then they do their own comic strip AP, although it's a contained comic strip AP where they play the game that the designer is there to talk about. I really like it so far. We're only a few episodes in, but the show is really smart. Rich is really, really good in a 1v1 format, not just 5e Dungeons and Dragons, but also the 1v1 interview format as well. It's just a really smart show, and the APs are surprisingly good. I was skeptical at first, but I really, really have turned out. I really like them a lot. And then the new show is called Pocket Sized Play. It is put on by community members Tim, and Tor, and guests. They have guests coming on to future episodes. I've heard them already. They play a session of a game, but then they edit it down to the most interesting fiction-dense 30 minutes, and they present it to you to listen to. They've only got one episode out so far. It was a good first episode. The next episodes are great. I've heard the next few, and I think people are really going to like them. They're quite fun. So, yeah, those are our shows.
I got to say, this reminded me the idea of cutting it down to primarily the story with a little bit of mechanics to show how it pushes the story forward.
Right, yeah.
Really great idea. It reminds me of a show I used to love called Knights of the Night. But this one's even tighter. Like, there is no table talk BS at all. Like, almost to the point where I thought, maybe, but it's good, though. The story is great. Tim B's voices are top notch. That guy's got some range. Really impressed by his characterizations as well as the use of color and how he was describing things, because it was the Warren. man, you owe it to yourself. If you want to try out the Warren, this is a great way.
Yeah, the first episode's great. I'm a little sad because there was actually a pilot episode before that episode that was the first part of that story of the Warren, but the audio wasn't good enough to release. But it was good. Like, Tim was doing these cat characters that were so damn good. I was jealous as hell because, you know, I take my NPCs really seriously, right? And I was like, oh man, these cats are good. I want to steal that.
You so will.
You just got to practice in the shower.
Yeah, practice in the shower. Those are our shows, the Gauntlet family of podcasts. Listeners, I know a lot of you already listen to them, but just for those of you who don't, go check them out because we put a lot of work into these shows, and our only metric for knowing how well we're doing is if you guys are listening. So in addition to just the pleasure we get from doing it, but it's nice to have people listen as well. So go check those out. And that's our show. If you'd like to get in touch with us, we are at gauntlet-rpg.com. There's links to all of our shows as well as our community pages and our meetup pages for our different meetups. So go find us there. We're also at Twitter at GauntletRPG. Thanks so much, Rich.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you very much.
And thanks, listeners.
So talking about smash cutting, one of my favorite moments from Origins of games that I ran was a Lady Blackbird game where they had split up. And I'm just going to assume you know Lady Blackbird because if you don't, you should totally play it with me sometime. Kale and Snargle were going up to the engine room because they wanted to gum up the works of the Hand of Sorrow to help the escape. The rest of the group all went down to the hangar to try to fuel up the owl so that they could escape. I smash cut over to Snargle and Kale. They go into and they find this huge engine room with coal fires going, and there are these goblins who are slaves, right? Because Snargle's in the scene, so the slaves have to be goblins. And there's an overseer who I jokingly said is in a Victorian barca lounger with an electro whip. You know, right? And so they go up and they trick him. Snargle poses as someone and mimics shape and says, "Hey, the lieutenant wants to talk to you." So the guard stands up and he's like, "Man, Lieutenant Swill, it's her again, right? It is not my kid, I swear. Here," hands him the electro whip and then heads off out of the scene. They go on. I smash cut down to the hangar. So the smash cut down to the hangar, and Lady Blackbird, who has her key of imposter, was like, "Oh, I really like the women's uniforms." And earlier we'd established some things about the uniform. So I really like that girl's uniform right there. Naomi, go get that girl, and I want to wear her uniform. So Naomi goes down, snatches up this woman, knocks her out, and I go, "So this is an Imperial, what do you do?" "Oh, well, you know, I'll just knock her out because I've got the drop on her. We'll strip her down, throw her in a closet." And I very, very quickly, like, gloss over it almost. I describe, "Okay, you're taking off the jacket, it says Swill on the front," and the two players is Snargle and Karen like, "Don't kill her, she's pregnant, please." It was a really great little smash cutting moment of Easter egging stuff between the two scenes.
It's great.
It's
It's
fun.
awesome. Yeah, it's good. It's good.